James from the Paint People here to give you some advice on how to tackle the kitchen cabinet conundrum. If you're struggling to find inspiration for your kitchen cabinets, here's your video. There's so many ways you can approach color selection when it comes to kitchen cabinets. Maybe too many ways to think about it. It's all a bit confusing, and the whole process is expensive. So we want to make sure that we make the right decision from the get-go. I got 8 little tips for you today, all about kitchen cabinet color selection, and my goal is to empower you to make your own decision based on some information rather than me feeding you a bunch of colors. And also a quick little shout out to Mighty Boards, because once you do decide on a paint color, test the color out first before you get your cabinets done. Very, very important. You don't want to spend that kind of money and then redo it like the next week because you hate the color. As usual, I'll be leaving Mighty Boards information in the description so you can pick some up if you need them. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to just give you colors, but my first tip is consider green. I feel like I have to give green a special shout out here because I love green, and I will continue to love green forever, I think. Just because I love nature, I love the transitional aspect of green. I love that you can have really warm greens, cool teal greens. It's just a color that feels pretty timeless to me, even though it's kind of trendy as well. I also think it's a great alternative to navy blue, which has dominated kitchen cabinets for the last decade. It's just a slight variation of the same principle. Deep, dark, bold colors that still somewhat suit a more contemporary, modern home and aesthetic. So I love me some dark forest greens on cabinets, whether it's an island, a lower half, a top half, the whole thing. You can go a lighter sage green that's a little more neutral and dusty feeling. Even a minty tea green or a little bit of a turquoise might be fun, because I do think green gets overshadowed by some of the other colors out there. So if green sounds good to you, then you're done. But for everyone else watching, let's get into some more general tips. The second tip I want to tell you is try sticking with your wall color. Now, this may be a little counterintuitive to certain people, because why would you just use your kitchen wall color in your cabinets? Wouldn't that look weird? Wouldn't they just blend into each other? Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion. It depends on what you want. If you want a more seamless, subtle look, then by going with whatever wall color you have, continuing it onto your cabinets, that'll do that. Especially lighter off-whites. Normally, if you gravitate towards neutrals in general that are lighter especially, then maybe you don't want those big bold colors that you see on Pinterest and on Google. Or maybe your cabinets are just much more simple and you want them to stay simple and just blend in. And a good reason you may want to do that is if you have a really intricate backsplash or a beautiful countertop that really wants to pull the focus more than the cabinets themselves. So that's an option right there. Just take your wall color, get it in cabinet paint form, and then there's your cabinet color. You also need to remember that the finish and the texture is likely to be very different than your drywall paint. Your walls will be maybe a matte finish or an eggshell, but your cabinets could be a satin, semi-gloss, high gloss even. So the sheen is what's going to be different. You have that textural element to help differentiate it from the drywall on your walls. So that's a simple little solution that some of you maybe didn't even think of because you just assumed it had to be different. Not always. Now, the flip side of this is contrast your wall color. And the way you can do this is just find a darker or lighter variation of whatever you used on your kitchen walls and then make that the cabinet color. That's a strategy that I used in my last condo in the loft. I essentially tried to find a darker version of my wall color that also coordinated with the red aspects of my granite countertop. And I found it, and it looks great. Some paint companies make this really easy because their color chips are arranged from darkest to lightest along each color hue. So in that case, you just find whatever color chip your wall color is on and then go down a couple or go up a couple colors, and then that'll give you a pretty solid choice for your cabinets as well. Obviously, the more steps you go in either direction will give you that much more contrast, but just be aware that as you get darker with any paint color, you're going to get more saturation, which means you'll probably get more of that visual color hue coming through. Which means if you have a beautiful, light, airy, cool gray on your walls, the darker version of that may be like a navy blue, which could work, but may not be what you expect. The next tip is a quick one. It's try and find a focal point of your kitchen. Take a good look at your kitchen, take it all in. Is there anything that maybe you want to accentuate? A natural choice would be the kitchen island. Perhaps you have a beautiful set of floor to ceiling cabinets that you really want to showcase. Maybe there's some intricate woodwork somewhere above the hood, and then that could inspire you to maybe add a second color. You of course could go with the traditional upper and lower cabinets. Maybe you go a bit lighter up top so it looks like it's kind of going into the ceiling or something, or maybe you have a kitchen island that you want to paint a beautiful dark green to really have it stand out, but you don't need to be limited by that. Find other opportunities to add color because there's a number of different ways you can do it. Just be aware that whatever you do decide to accentuate, make sure it's at least a natural focal point of the whole kitchen. Next is be inspired by your backsplash and your countertop. Now this can range for a lot of you because some of you are just completely gutting your kitchen and you're starting from scratch. Others are maybe just doing a paint job on the cabinets like I did with my condo, where I'm trying to inject a color that fits into what's already there. When it comes to backsplashes specifically, I find you can have a little more fun. There's a little more options out there for you. So if your backsplash is a little more intricate, then I would maybe opt for a more neutral cabinet color. Otherwise, it could seem a bit busy visually. Countertops are similar. Like there's more and more options out there that are a little more fun and dynamic and interesting and colorful. But for the most part, you're either dealing with lighter countertops or darker countertops. And I do like to have a bit of contrast there. Personally, unless you're going with the all-white look, then have fun. But I find it's always useful to extract some colors from the backsplash and the countertop. At least try and match up the undertones. So if you notice there's a lot of earthy colors that are more brown and red, then try and go with something that has those undertones within them. Some neutral taupes and grays. And then on the flip side, if you notice they're more gold leaning, there's more ochre or a bit of green, you want to make sure the undertones are really fitting together. Otherwise, they'll completely clash and it's not going to be a cute look. Here's something that not a lot of people talk about. This is my next tip. You can use color to accentuate boring cabinets, but you can also use color to settle down more intricate ones. If you have a really busy looking kitchen and everything's set up in a very unusual way, maybe you don't want to add another visual element to it by painting it bright red or blue. Think of your kitchen design as your morning coffee. You start with a nice cup of joe, which is the cabinets themselves, and then you have maybe one color, which is your sweetener, and then you have a really interesting layout, which is a bit unusual, and that's the milk, and then you add another color, and that's even more milk, and then you add some milk, even more milk. And now your coffee is overflowed. I don't want to say less is more when it comes to kitchens, but you do have to be aware of all of the design elements that are going on. Not only do you have the cabinets themselves, you have how they're arranged, what the levels are like, what the faces of the cabinets look like, the colors that you're using, your backsplash, your countertops, your flooring, your lighting fixtures. There's so many things that you have to think about. If you have a really intricate layout that is kind of making the space look a bit busy, don't make it even busier by going with bold colors. I think in those cases, opt for neutrals, opt for softer colors that have that dusty quality to them, that are more grayed out, toned down colors that will support what's already there rather than try and fight for attention. And then the opposite is true for more simple kitchens that have your straightforward setup. Then it's a better idea to add color there, those more bright, fun colors, let's say. To sum everything up, use color to enhance boring cabinets, and then use neutrals to settle down intricate ones. Here's a fun little kitchen cabinet tip. Maybe don't paint some of the cabinets. Seriously, if you have cabinets that are in really good shape, maybe it's a beautiful natural wood that's exposed, first of all, consider not painting them in the first place, because once you paint the wood, it's hard to go back to the original without having to sand everything down. But if you know you want to change it up, maybe you can leave some cabinets unpainted as a bit of an anti-accent. And I found an awesome example of this from Tyler Carew. Sorry if I butchered your name. That's kind of a cool thing because you get a little bit of what was there before, and then you add the color everywhere else. So instead of painting an accent thing, you paint everything else, and then what's left is the accent. It's a pretty cool way of doing it. Now, of course, the caveat here is you got to make sure that whatever is not painted looks good. In some cases, you might need to refinish it anyway, which adds another step, but the look is well worth it. Isn't it?
Yeah, baby!
Here's a big kitchen cabinet tip, everyone. Did you know that you can actually transform your kitchen without having to paint anything? I always recommend changing out your handles, your fixtures, all that, and without even needing to look at a paint chip, a paint swatch, or watch a beautiful YouTube video like this. You can really change the look of your kitchen just by getting even like $5 IKEA handles. It can dramatically change the look of your kitchen cabinets. And that's what I did here in this video in my condo. I also did change the color of the cabinets too. So you can check out my whole process right over here, right now.